Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Groover. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Groover, and we are so excited to welcome yet another phenomenal guest, very dear friend and bowling partner of mine, Jason Linett. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, Kathy, so good to be here. And Jason, you've got a very handsome first name.
Well, thank you. Jason. You know,
Exactly.
It reminds me of like Spies Like Us. You know, we just need to be, we'll all three be Jason today. Kathy, you
I
want
could
to
be
Maybe pull out more obscure Dan Aykroyd movies, but I will.
I should have worn my hat today. I could have been Jason as well. So Jason and I, oh, it's going to be so confusing. Jason and I know each other because we were both hypnotherapists, and we are on the now award-winning bowling team from Hypnothoughts Live.
It's a lifetime achievement.
Yep. So we go way back. So Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, how you got started, what your background is, and why you're so freaking fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my background is a bit of a colorful one. As clearly the industry of being the hypnotist is not necessarily something that we wake up and decide, hey, that's what I want to do when I grow up. It's something that I discovered almost by accident. Someone came to my college, did one of those comedy shows, and fast forward a number of years later, I'm now working doing motivational assemblies for high schools, which for what it's worth is very similar now to the program I do in the corporate world. We just change the music. And honestly, I was there in a hypnotherapy training, basically looking at getting more knowledge in terms of how it all works. And I was kind of the smart aleck in the back of the room going, I'm not going to do this therapeutic stuff. I'm just here to put more letters after my name. And now I'm standing here in Virginia Hypnosis, an office that's been around for going on about 12 years. And it's practically all that I do. So it's that nice discovery that, you know, along the path of our businesses, our personal lives, what we often start with kind of morphs along the way as we figure out, here's what I'm passionate about, here's what I'm good at. And the side note to all of this is that about 8-9 years ago, looking around, and this is basically true of any wellness industry, that you find people who are passionate about the work that they do, and yet there's a disconnect in terms of their skills, in terms of business. So part of the origin story became that of teaching people in wellness industries how to get more clients, how to build profitable programs, basically how to get those people in the office so you can use these outstanding skills. And along the way, being the wonders of the internet, my personal clients would then find, here's the other work that I'm doing. And they would come in for issues. I see a ton of executives for public speaking issues. And we'd be working on that fear. But at the same time, they'd go, yeah, but here's my messaging. What do you think? And it became a bit of this headed approach in terms of let's not only work on the messaging, but also work on that emotional structure beneath it too. So looking at how we can take that message, you know, your skill, you know, your business can change people's lives, but it's about getting that right emotional state in process, plus the right words at the right time to help motivate that to happen.
Well, I think that's interesting that you bring that up because so much of the time, especially from the business side, right? People are like, just tell me what I need to say. Give me the right messaging. And it's like time out, you know, you got to have the right energy. You've got to, you know, remove the blocks, work about the mindset issues. That's more important even a lot of times than the message, right? And so unless you work through those blocks, even if you get given the perfect script, it's going to come off wrong, right?
Well, it's that emotional mindset beneath it as well. Everything we can brand into the category of emotional intelligence, that it's not a matter of what we say, it's a matter of how it's presented, how that relationship is created, how it's enhanced, how it's sharpened, and not just the right words in the right order, that may be a part of it. It's about simply being congruent with that messaging. So by the time we say it, now it's ready to be received. Calibration to that other person as well too.
Well, and it's all about building relationships. And I remember my uncle he's like the epitome of salesman. And he scared the crap out of me when I was a kid, but now as an adult, he's one of my favorite people. And one of the things, we were sitting there talking about my business and how I wanted to do more speaking and wanted to do more coaching. This was a couple of years back. And he said, Kathy, here's the key to sales. And I'm like ready to write down this like, you know, gigantic, like, ooh, I got it. And he said, if they like you, they'll see you. If they trust you, they'll buy from you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's it? Those like 10 words, that's it. But it's true. It's about building those relationships. And we've had Phil Gerbicek and a couple people on talking about social media, about how, you know, you connect with these people on LinkedIn, and then you either send them this 30 paragraph pre-written thing of why don't you buy from me, or you never follow up with anything. So it's about building those relationships. And I know Jason is one of the most charismatic speakers, and I've sat in on a couple snippets of your classes at Hypnothoughts, and you're so fun to watch, and you're so engaging, and it is about that warmth and the building of those relationships.
Well, thank you for that. I'd share there's a nuance to that, which, you know, if we rewind part of my personal story back as of now, almost, what are we at? Almost 16 years and shy of actually about a month. I did not walk up to this girl at my college and suddenly say to her, you and I should get married and have kids. Now that we've been married for going on 11 years and we've been together for 16 of that, and I better know her sense of humor, it might have worked. But to look at the nature of how the relationship is crafted, which is only in the last couple of years that, in that classic metaphor of too many people in business are trying to consummate the sales marriage before the first date, I only realized that there was an element of the story that I was leaving out because I did not actually ask her out first. Instead, I was, what's the term? I was chicken. And instead, about a week before, I said to her, would it be okay if at some point I asked you out? That way I wasn't going to get turned down, right? So by screening it, by getting the yes before I went for the yes, at that point, eventually it became, hey, what are you doing this Saturday? And we got together. So to look at the nature of how we can, you know, screen that relationship, we can basically calibrate to that person in front of us. And there doesn't have to be that fancy objection crusher. There doesn't have to be that fancy closing strategy. Yeah. And it's also where we can build better integrity by being able to say to somebody, look, here's why I don't think we're perhaps a match. And whether it's here's something that I think will be the match, or here's what has to happen for this or anything else to be effective, that's when I want you to call me back.
Well, because there has to be that like first, right? I mean, that's what your uncle is saying, Kathy.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be the like first. So build the relationship first. Like you said, I mean, so many people are trying to consummate the marriage before you even go out on a date. I mean, I see that all the time on LinkedIn. I have to decline, I don't know, five people a day at least, you know, because they're people that's what it is. You know, they connect, it looks a little suspicious, and boom, 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 you know, it's like, they just start hitting you with all this stuff. So now I end up declining a lot of the people.
Well, it's that value too. Something that I've tested and played with in that arena is not necessarily to lead with my information first, because otherwise that just completely reeks of sales. That completely reeks of to try to sell you something. Instead, you know, oftentimes to play the game, at least on LinkedIn, of who is that warm connection that I can help to facilitate. And at least now there's a foot in the door, and then I can see a common shared interest to then say, hey, here's an article on something that I see you're also interested in. I've been looking around because I think more people should see this article. And it's not sharing my information in that initial step.
Right.
Well, and it's offering that thing of value. And this is what I love about hypnosis, because I not only love doing it, but I get to share pretty much all of my background with whatever client ends up in my office. And it's the same way with building those business connections. It's what in my sphere can I offer? And if it's not me, maybe it's someone I know, or maybe it's something I know, or maybe it's something I read. You know, to me, we're still sort of missing that value part. And it is the asking for the marriage before the date. It's like, well, do we even know if we're compatible? Like, do we even know if we have anything to offer to each other before we're walking down the aisle? You know?
Yeah, the message that I tend to live by is that if you try to sell to everybody, you end up selling to nobody. So let's use that example of now we're speaking to a group of people where metaphorically and literally they are at times raising their hand to say that they're interested in learning more about something. I've got a stack of, I shouldn't hold it up. I've got a stack of magazines that have been showing up at the office of people going, we want you to advertise in this newsletter, and having to go, that's going to go out to everybody in that local area. And instead to look at how do I position myself in front of that ideal audience, and then make some sort of specific offer that now those people can continue on with me. So as much as we're drilling into our business mindsets about funnel marketing, the real message becomes if you can position yourself at the end of the funnel, this way now you're only speaking to those people who are actually qualified to have that conversation. You're now speaking to those people who have already gone through the systems of your business. I mean, I'd give a quick example here, which is that about 2-3 years ago, I had a really good problem in my business. We were getting about 25 to 35 brand new phone calls a day, which is a really good problem to have. Yeah. The challenge though is that they were just finding the website, seeing the phone number, dialing immediately. And let's say it politely, they were asking questions that there were videos on the website, answering those questions plus the ones they haven't yet thought to ask. So what we did was we put onto the website, the local website, a bit of an application for people to go in, and the phrasing always needs to be for the benefit of that person on the other side. It's not ever saying, don't waste my time, I don't want to talk to you. It's instead, for your benefit, for better use of your time, you can schedule a specific time that I'll call you back, guaranteed, which saves you in the frustration of phone tag. The benefit of this now becomes is that this begins that initial step of a bigger system where now they're having to schedule time. Now it's an event rather than, hey, let me call this guy. On top of that too, they're having to answer a few simple questions. What's your goal? What have you done so far to address this issue? What's been holding you back? There's a few little linguistic strategies embedded inside of the application. But now by the time they've filled that out, we now know what they want to hear about, which now means building systems. We're able to go in and say, hey, looking forward to chatting with you on Wednesday. Here's a video to watch. Here's a couple of testimonial letters to look at. Now we've got permission. This is what's different from that LinkedIn strategy. Now we've got permission to actually send directed information, which is now setting the stage for that conversation where now they can say, hey, I read that Stephanie letter. That's what I want to do. How soon can we get started? Position yourself at the end of the funnel that way.
Well, I know it's hard. I mean, it makes perfect sense when you talk about it, but I know it scares the shit out of a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Because they think, oh, I've got to have my message to everybody or else, nobody's going to end up finding me and nobody will end up buying. But it's exactly what you said. You've got to narrow it down much more because think about who you want dropping through the end of your funnel. Because if not, you're going to get a lot of crap in the top of it. Like you said, you're going to get 25 or 30 calls a day for people that aren't even really probably interested or prepared in what it is that you're actually offering.
I mean, look at it too, that as much as we can look at the word that's spelled Niche, some people pronounce it niche. I like niche because it rhymes with rich. But to look at it in terms of even going deeper inside of that of a niche, the categories inside of bigger categories that I can really spend my time focusing my efforts on. So by way of example, working with a number of entrepreneurs and small business owners who want to improve their public speaking. And that's where my marketing message is really focused. And that's where those are those testimonials that we put out there. Those are the stories that I wrote into my book. Those are those things that I'm off at other conventions talking about, having the video camera running and playing the superhero game of Captain Repurposing and going, who else needs to see this video? To look at the example of years ago in terms of a personal change. Here's a man who comes into the office and he's diabetic and he's got sugar cravings. And that's an issue when you're diabetic. And at the end of the process, he looks at me and he says, hey, was that your video camera in the other room? Would you like a video testimonial? Oh, if you have to.
Yeah. If you can spare the extra 5 minutes, right?
Quick 2 or 3 minute video. And the kicker at the end of it was, it wasn't even my goal to lose weight. But by the time we were done, I've dropped an extra 10 pounds. My blood sugar numbers are in order. And if you're thinking about this, stop overthinking it. Just call Jason right away. And through the wonders of targeted marketing that we can pull off nowadays, to have that laser specific focused message going out to that laser specific focused community, which the beauty of this becomes is that it gives you that positioning in the role that you absolutely already have. And are there people who are not entrepreneurs and small business owners who see my public speaking confidence program? Yes, of course. And one of them is coming in later today, and that's not their specific niche down background, but still they see the message as a fit. Here's the person who's about to go in for back surgery and they encouraged, if you can drop about 15 pounds between now and the procedure, you'll be in a better position for healing. And he might see that diabetic message, which is clearly not for him, yet clearly he can make that correlation. So by getting it laser specific focused, this is also where we can also start to discover and invent our own markets where there's not really any competition.
Yeah.
Well, and I think because what you just brought up there is, I've heard this from other people as well, but when you do niche down and you do your marketing for your niche, it doesn't mean other people aren't going to come along.
Right.
In fact, there's going to be a lot of people that still come along, but the quality of leads that you're going to get are much better the more niched and the more focused you can be in your communication. Because like you said, somebody's still going to see that diabetic video and go, well, yeah, I'm not diabetic and it doesn't exactly relate to me, but something in that resonates with me. And so I want to go see Jason.
Well, a friend of mine has the quote, and I've modified it slightly. He says, in terms of working with personal change, I'm only going to work with those people that I know I can get success with. And I'm going to expand upon that to say, I'm only going to work with those people that I know I can be successful with, but also I get excited to go into the office and work with those issues.
Totally.
So it's where I'd share a quick anecdote that I am right now in a funny position in the Northern Virginia area where my, this is plastic, where my brick and mortar office.
Your plastic and mortar office.
No, when I moved the office a couple of months ago, every time I played with blue screen and green screen stuff, we always made it a white brick wall. So at least it's textured. This is great for those people listening audio only, by the way. It's at home. There's a white brick wall behind Jason. So, no, but also to look at how my greatest conflict right now in terms of a local market is the fact that, and I've held back a specific statement, that if someone were to call around this local area, many of those people are folks who have gone through my training programs. And it's not within me to say to a potential client on the phone, well, you can call that office, but they're my students. They learned from me. I've never said that to any of them. And it's where too, because of the nature of my intentional 3-ring circus way that I'm running things right now, I see live clients one-to-one. And also that includes working with folks around the world, thanks to video conferencing, audio conferencing, as we are right now, doing presentations and also doing education online. And each of these is its own thriving, successful business, which means I'm not dependent on any one specific aspect of it. And, you know, to politely leave out some of the details, there's a bit of a family medical thing that's going on right now in terms of distant family, which allowed me to take a week off and it not be a major issue. That way I could put all that focus into where my attention needed to go instead. But this is what allows that experience to have someone call in perhaps and go, great, this is what I do best. Here's a little bit more information. How soon would you like to get started? Or to simply even say, you know what, I think you do amazingly well working with this one person. Here's their phone number.
Yeah.
And sometimes to politely have to say, it's like, I'm referring you to that person because I think they do that better than I do. And very happy to make that connection as well. That's the mindset that I'm known for in the hypnosis community of the more we're all successful, the more we're all successful.
Yeah, and there's no competition with that. It's about helping each other. And this is one of the things I really appreciate about the hypnosis community is, you know, I've been to so many different hypnosis conferences and there isn't that rivalry. It's the, oh, well, so-and-so does this, that niche, go to them. I'm not a smoking weight loss person. I would rather send them to, I mean, I have done, but it doesn't make me happy. I work with fears and phobias. I want to work with pre and post-op. I want to work with pain. That's more my thing. So if you call me and say you want to lose 50 pounds, it's not my forte. I don't enjoy it as much. So I would rather give that to someone who is really in that lane and keep my stuff going and make it happy. So before we got on air, Jason.
Oh yeah, I was going to say briefly.
Jason, we were going to talk about the Simpsons. What did you learn?
Yeah, I want to hear that story.
I want to hear that story.
Yeah, I think we should just wrap it up appropriately and just say the greatest business lesson I ever learned came from watching The Simpsons, and just cut the recording right there just so people can go, what the hell was he talking about?
I know, then we'll have to have the teaser for the next one, right? You got to come back to the next episode to hear the answer.
No, it's where my favorite character on that show ever was voiced by the late, great Troy McClure, voiced by the late, great Phil Hartman. And the character, sort of TV personality, hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from some such self-help programs as Smoke Yourself Thin and Get Some Confidence, Stupid, which is not the message that Kathy and I present when we're out there in the therapeutic realm. No, but to look at this kind of goes back to the conversation we were having before about micro niche, and to embrace that here is a specific targeted audience that if I can position myself in front of those people, those are the ones that it's not necessarily a buying conversation. It's no longer sales or, you know, trying to have to market something. It's just basically presenting that here's a way I can service that specific need. So I'd share the quick story that here is a moment that I got a phone call. This is like 8-9 years ago now. And it was the editor of a security and defense magazine. And politely, I have no idea how the hell these people found me. But they reached out to me to say, we want something that's going to be kind of entertaining, but we also want it to incorporate a positive message. here's the transition that our, executive team is going through. Here's this transition we've made that we've been bought out by a bigger conglomerate. And here's the message that people need to leave our event with. It's going to be a 3-day convention. And the first 2 or 3 days are all just message, mission statement. And we want to kind of finish it with something interactive, but also still drill down that message. And we crafted together this keynote presentation that kind of became the closing of that event. So to look at what happened there is that I had this glowing testimonial from the editor of this magazine, which I could frame it on the wall and sit here in my office and smile and say, look how good I am. But again, Troy McClure, if we can put that message in front of the right people. So the security and defense industry is not one that I had a lot of background in. And still to this day, it's a little bit more surface structure, what my language is, what my knowledge of that is. But to look at that letter and go, here's something that people in his industry might also have that need, which the disclaimer is, of course, with permission, going, can I share this with people in your field? To which even better, he goes, yeah, here's a list.
Oh, he actually gave you the list.
Phone and give the man a hug.
Yeah.
But to have that list of people who his specific message was important to, the people who were the advertisers of the magazine, the people who were not necessarily the subscribers, but the difference was, this is where, Kathy and I are in a world with a lot of health and wellness folks who think the model is, I'm going to sit there at the health and wellness fair and stand behind the table and be there as the vendor. Instead, I want to see people there as the expert. And it was just a politely phrased letter, taking this document that I had, this testimonial letter, and making a couple of hundred, if not 1,000 full color copies of that, and sending that over with a, hey, you might know this specific person. He shared these comments about a program we put together to solve the goals of 1, 2, and 3 bullet points. Should you have any questions about how we might be able to work together to improve your team, here's how you can reach out to me. And it was done from a very non-salesy way, just basically that mindset of sharing information. Now, let's go back to where we started this conversation, though, because there was a warm introduction. So that's where I had the permission to now send something that was a little bit more targeted, as opposed to if this was LinkedIn and they were a stranger, I'm not going to go that specific route. But to look at that, hi, I'm Troy McClure mindset of going, here's someone who needs to hear this message. And here's the amazing benefit we had by crafting that program, crafting that presentation for that one specific event. And to go ethically into the mindset of how dare I not share that message with people who also have a similar need. So to go from that positioning of going, here's what I've done, here's what we can do, but also here's our connection. You might remember me from, transitions to our mutual friend said this.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, I'm sure in Northern Virginia, it's not like there's a whole bunch of defense companies there, right?
There's
yeah. Yeah,
a handful.
There's a few that are there, right?
Wow.
Well, I mean, look at the same strategy, though. And I held up a magazine briefly there that's trying to get me to pay for advertising. And last year, about this time of year, I was featured in the local magazine specifically for helping people to stop smoking. And to this day, I'm proud to say that it's this big full-page spread, great photo, really well-written copy about the local business and specifically that service. And to date, a year later, it has produced 0 phone calls. And when the magazine reached out to me to go, hey, how's it going? I had to go, I think we should chat a little bit about your understanding of your reach. I'm not upset with you because it's been massively beneficial in terms of, again, back to that survey strategy where they have to fill out the application to schedule time to call me. If they click the button that they want to quit smoking, you can imagine the first thing that I'm sending them. Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may have seen me from this magazine. And sharing something that's now targeted, which from our hypnotic world, we talk about working in metaphor. I want them to read the testimonial. I want them to read the article and position themselves inside that story. So now they are, from a sales perspective, selling themselves and the value of the experience. And now we get to have a conversation, what we would say future paced into that dialogue, rather than being the guy who's now trying to sell you something from the outside.
Yeah. And one of the things too, and that's such a great example, and there's so many people that I need this message because I'm a little too, Jason, we need to get on the phone and help me. Both of you probably need to help me, but Jason on the bottom help me. and we're once again running out of our 30 minutes, but one thing that we had talked about is the whole putting systems in place and the time management. So can you just speak to that briefly about how you work with individuals and corporations because time management is huge. It's one of those things that we actually don't talk about enough, I don't think, because we've got all these devices, and so we think we're being so efficient, and I don't know that we are. So could you just give us a couple little tips about the whole time management thing? And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing comes down to one simple statement, that the game of I'm trying to find the time for a project, that doesn't exist. Finding the time is a game that we've invented to fool ourselves into not doing things, when really there's only making the time. To which, as my wife would describe it, I call it a bedtime. She calls it that I lame out at 10 o'clock at night. That way my rituals can kick off waking up early in the morning, and depending on the day of the week, either working on a project or hitting the gym, coming back, showering. And by the time I'm out of the shower and getting dressed, the kids are waking up. She's waking up as well. We've got that family time together. You know, early on, before I had kids, there was a time frame of looking at, let me just work this marathon schedule. Because I can right now. And I was seeing upwards of 35, if not 40 people a week sometimes, marathon long days. And nowadays it's kind of morphed down to going, here are the hours that I work. I'm in the office in terms of the local side of it, which again reaches global too in our modern era, of Monday through Friday. And I do a 10, 1 o'clock and a 4 o'clock, and I don't do exceptions to that. So someone goes, what can you do in the evening? Well, I'm in the office Monday through Friday. I do a 10, a 1 o'clock, or a 4 o'clock. What's best for you? You ever do weekends? Well, almost a robotic response. I'm in the office Monday through Friday. And also to look at that ability to look further out. So for example, I jump into teaching a class this week, Thursday to Monday, I'm teaching a 5-day event, and knowing that time was blocked off on the calendar, which means that's not a time that someone else can use. So to look at that mindset of doing things in different modes, doing things in that production style. So in a very indirect reference, it's not quite a plug, because I keep getting my clients, my speaking people too, going, hey, we found your hypnosis podcast. And the next thing out of their mouth is, I'm not the audience for that, am I? Which it's not that it's trade secrets, but it's very much a trade specific, industry specific program, where it's going out to people who are already in that world. So to look at this task of putting out a weekly program every single Thursday, I'll typically only record it about 8 or 9 times a year, and just take a half a day, batch produce like 4 or 5 episodes. Otherwise, it's not done. I mean, the other side of this too is that willingness to break away from things that are working really well right now, to do things that you can scale up in the future. So if you look at the worksmarthypnosis.com website, that's an entire digital media empire nowadays. That's the podcast. That's several online training communities. And it's something that really supports everything else on top of all that I do. Right. And all of that happens, all of that exists because years ago, I set the time aside to not see the clients those days, to not teach a specific event, to stand there awkwardly sometimes in an empty room and teach to the video cameras, to reach out beyond my own personal skills and hire the website designer, the programmer, to build this beautiful membership portal, which I am proud to say I have no idea how it works, because it's my job to find the people who know how to make that tech stuff happen for me. My job is to describe the user experience, and most of my work happens on white sheets of paper with a black marker, and I pull out my phone and I shoot a video. And show is better than tell. Describe exactly what I need, fire that video off to someone who's got better skills than I do at that specific thing, and they make it work. The favorite story of this is that years ago, I got a little full of myself one morning and thought, hey, that offer in the sidebar of that website, that's the wrong number. It should be 15% off. It should be rather than 10. Let me go in and fix that myself. And 5 minutes later, already ahead of me, I crashed my entire website. And frantically messaging my programmer, she hops in early morning, she goes in and she fixes it. And the next step was she locked me out of my website. Which I love this story, because any regular non-business owner person would go, what'd you do? I go, I gave her a raise. This wonderfully conservative, very polite woman, she goes, you keep effing stuff up. This is why you pay me. So
Right.
to be mindful about what your specific task is. And I'd share, I know I alluded to some, family medical things that are going on outside of my immediate, family at home. And here's a project that I was slating to release sometime in November, and taking ownership of going, January's good. Let me put it out then. So it's that ownership of our time, but also to embrace the fact that, we create our own deadlines. And if we have a good reason, we can shift those. If we keep putting it off over and over and over, chances are it might not yet be your goal.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And we another woman on talking about time management, and she said, where are you spending your time? Are you down in the weeds doing things that are not the highest good for you? I mean, I don't want to do my own website. I don't know how. I got a gal that does that. I send her things. It magically happens. I don't care how she does it. I don't care how it's done. Let me know what I owe you, because it's not the best use of my time to figure out how to now try to put a website together. It's like my best use of time is either in front of audiences or one-on-one doing the trainings and the therapy work that I do. So I completely agree with you. I think so often we get stuck in the weeds of doing these things that,
What's that called? The superhero syndrome, that no one else can do it as well as I can.
Right.
Yeah. And we end up fucking things up, right? As a result of that. So it's in that short little period of time, you gave us a whole bunch of ideas around time management, right? I mean, some of the stuff around, just to try to summarize a little bit in case people didn't quite catch it, right? But some of the stuff around boundaries, right? I do a 10, 1, and a 4. That's it, right?
That's it.
I don't work weekends. You're setting a boundary around that a lot of times their time management gets out of control because they're trying to do too much and they don't set those boundaries, right?
I forget whose quote it was. I think it might have been Hal Elrod, but I'm thinking it might not be, the man behind Miracle Morning, that the catchphrase was, sort everything in your life as either being a hell yeah or a no. That if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no.
It's a no.
Yeah.
Either stop doing it or give it to somebody else on your team, right? Because again, that's kind of what you brought up too, is
or even
having those people around you.
Yeah, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Part of my backstory was briefly working in production management, oftentimes in professional theater. And I began as the audio engineer, the sound designer, and quickly lost the interest in that and moved on to other things, clearly. And yet, even though I learned back in the day in Cool Edit Pro 2000, which came out in 1998, which was eventually bought out by Adobe, and now it's Adobe Audition, which is amazing because all the buttons are in the same place. Even though I have those skills, when I stop recording the podcast, by Dropbox, it goes to the editors. If I'm putting together some audio resource to go along with a product, the downloads with a video course, that's handled by someone else. That it's a better use of my time to let someone else handle those in the weeds tasks and go, here's the part that I'm responsible for.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this was so good, Jason. We have to have you back. Jason, you can
absolutely.
stay.
I can say you're not kicking me out.
You coming back. It was fabulous. So let's, oh man, this was so great. So filled with just, I knew you were going to be fabulous. So tell people, I know you have an offer for all of our listeners, viewers. So tell people how they can reach you, how they can get that offer, and then we'll dismiss.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make it easy. We kind of started the conversation talking about emotional intelligence, that it comes back to that calibration and that sort of state management within yourself. So simple website to go to. If you go to nameofmybook.com, it's worksmartbusiness.com/confidence. You can go there. That's where you can download a free 15-minute hypnotic program that's helping you to create your own peak performance state of mind. It actually creates a technique that even beyond the audio, you can do anytime, anywhere, and no one knows you're doing something. So rather than the old school game of, I need a dark room and a CD player for 45 minutes, this quick audio is going to condition a strategy you can use beyond that time. The benefit of that is you can listen to it as many times as you want, but also it's going to establish a skill. And I'll give you that website one more time. It's worksmartbusiness.com/confidence. And from there, that'll redirect to all of my other stuff too.
Yay. This has been so wonderful. Jason, thank you so much for being on. You have been fabulous.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I'm Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygruver.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, unlock your potential, have a great week, and we will catch you on a future episode of the Fire and Earth Podcast.